Whoops. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Meeting of Kimberley City.
There's no late item, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, unless council has any questions, as you mentioned, this was before council a couple of times, once on November 27th during a budget presentation, and then last week on December 4th for first three readings of the bylaw. So that budget presentation, for anybody that's interested, it's posted on the city website under Engage Kimberley. And as we make our way through the budget process, we'll update that site with the budget presentation. So all the information is there if anybody's interested.
All right, excellent. Any questions? All those in favor? The motion is carried. Next up, we have the City of Kimberley Solid Waste Regulations Fees Bylaw. And the motion is that council adopt this particular bylaw. Councillor McBain moves and Councillor Roberts seconds. Questions? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Next up, we have for adoption, the 5-year financial plan bylaw, 2023 to 2027. Mover, please. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor McBain seconds. Questions? Motion is carried. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. Sorry. Shouldn't get into too much of a routine. Okay, next up, we have the Growing Communities Fund Reserve Establishment. You'll recall we had first three readings at the last meeting. And the motion on the floor is that we adopt this particular reserve. Could I have a mover? Councillor McBain, thank you. And Councillor Cairns, seconds. Do you want to make a quick comment on this one, please, Jim? Just for public consumption?
I don't mind repeating this one. So this is in relation to the Growing Communities Fund that was established by the province earlier this year. The province came up with the fund. I think it was $1 billion in total. Of that amount, the city of Kimberley received $3.4 million that's placed into a reserve that can be used for capital expenditures into the future. So one of the requirements of the funding is that we place it in a statutory reserve. So it's in a separate bank account right now. So what this bylaw is doing is it's creating that reserve, and we're going to be discussing through the budget deliberation process how that money can best be invested. As we make those decisions, we'll have to adopt reserve fund expenditure bylaws to allow us to spend money on those specific purposes. So you'll be hearing about this a little bit over the next year.
Excellent, thank you. Council, questions or comments? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question. Is there any time limitation on the spending of this amount of money?
There is. I think, yeah, Krista gave the timeline last year. I think it's 5 years.
Oh, so we don't have to hurry up and spend it real quick or anything?
No, not in a big hurry.
Thank you.
Further? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right. Pardon me. Next up, we have a development permit attached to 1180 303rd Street. And the motion on the floor is that council approve the development permit to allow development of a multi-unit self-storage facility on the lands located at 1180 303 Street in accordance with the plans attached to this report and the conditions thereto. Councillor Royer moves, Councillor McBain seconds. Discussion. Troy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so we have a development proposal here to allow for the construction of a multi-unit self-storage facility at 1180 303rd Street in the Marysville industrial area. The proposed plan at this time is up to 11 self-storage buildings with a potential for approximately 290 individual self-storage units if fully built out. The council may recall the previous zoning amendments to amend the M2 zone to accommodate a range of specialized light industrial manufacturing and compatible commercial uses, and the further amendment there to allow the self-storage use as a principal permitted use. Facility here the subject property, is surrounded by a mix of M2 and M1 industrial zone properties. There is a residential area further to the west, but it's approximately 200 meters to the west of these industrial lands here in this proposed facility. Given the nature of the self-storage use, there's unlikely to be any real objectionable characteristics from that development, except perhaps through construction with some bit of construction noise. But once those are done and completed, it should be fairly quiet, low dust, low noise, all that kind of stuff. So one of the unique things here is just from a servicing perspective, they'll be sharing the self-storage facility itself doesn't really require any sort of domestic water service or on-site wastewater service. Given the nature of the use, there's not really any staff involved except for during construction again. But once it's up and operational, there'll really be no staff on site or no employees on site. There will be what's proposed here is in collaboration with the adjacent property owner, where the new Stoke juicery facility is currently under construction. There'll be a shared private access road, shared private water main, and shared private hydrants between the two properties. Bit of an unusual one, but something that we reviewed with fire and operations, and that can be made to work, subject to conditions of approval on the development permit there to make sure that there's some registered agreements that outlined the terms and conditions for that shared use and future repair and maintenance of those amenities there. Yeah, the shared private driveway will be really just used for emergency response and access for the emergency response to and from those hydrants. But otherwise, the customers there will access from the south side of the site at 303rd Street. And yeah, I think that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
All right, council. Go ahead, Councillor Dunneback.
I guess my one concern is the shared hydrant. It seems like a really big expense for the people that are trying to develop this. And with them building that, will it be able to be tied into a future system that the city would be bringing to the industrial area? Like, would it be able to be tied in, or it would stay independent of itself forever?
That is the intention. It will stay independent. And it is actually a cost savings measure for the two projects that they're sharing the cost of that. If they don't share that line, then they each need their own independent water main and hydrants there. So that it is a cost saving measures for both projects over the long term. But at this time, it's intended to be private. I guess there is some possibility that it could become public, but that will depend on kind of the design and construction standards that it's constructed to.
Okay, thanks, Troy.
Further? Go ahead, Sue.
I guess just in addition to Kevin's comments, just wondering if we have an estimated timeline for the servicing of the industrial park.
Yeah, that's a good question. It'll actually be sort of phased in, I guess. The first section of that road and the water main and hydrants will be phased in, largely because the juicery facility next door is well underway and under construction, and they're going to need to make sure that that's installed prior to their occupancy permit for that. The self-storage buildings, you know, I guess depending on the sequencing of their construction and installation, you know, it might be some time before that sort of final hydrant is installed, but that will be required as part of the overall site development there.
Sorry, Troy, I actually meant the servicing of the industrial park that we're doing with the grant. Sorry
So
about
my
that.
confusion, sorry.
So-
The servicing that we're doing with the grant is actually on a different street, the 315th Avenue section. So this is kind of an extension of 316th Avenue so it's not going to be impacted by that initial grant. Yep.
Further, Council. Okay, hearing no further questions, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the completion or the direction to complete the community's grant program application. And the motion on the floor is that council directs staff to develop and submit an application to the 2024 Complete Communities Grant Program, requesting $108,800, which represents 80% of the cost of engaging a consultant to study and update the modeling of the city's municipal water and sewer infrastructure in order to ascertain the capacities required to sustain further housing development and fire safety requirements, and to provide requirements and costs associated with necessary upgrades. And further, that staff be directed to include in year one of the 2024-2028 5-year financial plan, a grant-dependent project with a total budget of $126,000 to allow for the consultant's engagement. And further information in the report, Council. Could I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Cairns. Councillor McBain seconds. All right. Nick, are you going to speak to this?
Good evening, Mayor Council. Yes, definitely I can speak to this. So this was put together with Pam and Shane, and this is actually a follow-up to the previous submission that we made on this grant application 8 months ago or so. So we weren't successful in that first grant application, so we've gone back and kind of relooked at the budgets and tried to tighten up the scope of work on this and get a better number for it, and made some adjustments to the application, and we're trying for second intake on this grant.
Awesome. When's it due?
It is due January 15th, I believe.
All right. Council, questions or comments? I have a question, and that has to do with not so much this particular project, but what would be classified as a Plan B? In other words, what happens if there is a catastrophic event and we don't get water from Mark Creek anymore, or whatever extended period of time that might result in? What's Plan B for water access, or do we have one yet?
I think at this point, Plan B would be pulling from the St. Mary's River. We have a water license out of St. Mary's River, so it would involve some infrastructure there to tie into the system, but that would be probably the easiest secondary Plan B at this stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to kind of include that as a separate piece inside this consultant's work, but it's something you may want to consider.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point.
Okay, Councillor Dunneback, go ahead.
I used to work at the golf course, and I just wondering if the city would be able to tie into their inlet to reduce impact to the stream and stuff like that, and work together with them. I don't know it's only during certain times of the year and we're not allowed to divert and stuff like that, but there is something that's already there, and if we could maybe team up and save a bunch of money and reduce the impact down there just a thought. I don't know.
Thanks,
if it works.
Councillor Dunneback.
Yeah, thank you. To be honest, we haven't spent much time looking at the details of what would be involved on this yet, and then that's something that we'll be working on as we kind of look at our getting our natural assets on board and our contingency plans and everything like that. But definitely a great option to consider. Yeah, both Purcell Gulf and Blue Lake pull out of the St. Mary's River currently.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment on my part. It seems as though we've been spending a lot of time and money, if you will, on consulting for the assessment of our facilities, all of whom have to have some attention. And I think it's really, really important that we follow through on this one. The assessment of what's underground that no one ever sees, that we do need to pay close attention to, because so much of it is just coming under duress because of age, and also we're seeing climate change in terms of how much water we actually get, how much snow we actually get. So I'm really, really excited to see that this assessment or this consultation is going forward.
Right.
Fingers
Thank you.
crossed for the grant.
Thank you for the comments. Further, council? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Okay, next up, we have the schedule for the 2024 regular council meetings and committee of the whole meetings, basically the calendar. The motion on the floor is the council approve the 2024 regular council meeting and committee of the whole calendar is presented in the report. Councillor Royer moves. Councillor McBain seconds. Comments or questions, council? It's way ahead, always subject to change and or cancellation. Okay, hearing no comments, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have the acting mayor appointments for 2024. And the motion on the floor is that councillors be appointed as acting mayor for the 2024 year as outlined in the report. Mover, Councillor McBain, thank you. Councillor Karen seconds. Any comments, council? I think you were queried ahead of time on any possible conflicts you might have. All right, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Next up, we have our check run, and the motion on the floor is that the City of Kimberley check run in the amount of $831,247 be approved as paid. Mover, please. Councillor McBain moves. Councillor Royer seconds. Comments? Any usual items? Non-routine items? Go ahead, Sandra.
This is a pretty ordinary one. There's no routine items, unroutine items here. There is a large construction segment paying out there, but other than that, we're pretty well caught up with all the construction payments for now, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Further questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. All right, we have one item of correspondence this evening. Could I have a mover to receive? Yeah, thank you, Councillor McBain and Councillor Royer seconds. This is a letter from the Union of BC Municipalities regarding the second Community Works Fund payment. Jim, can I get you to make a comment on this one?
Yeah, certainly. So this is, it used to be referred to as the federal gas tax transfer program. They changed it to the Community Works Fund. And now they've got Canada Community Building Fund in front of that. So as noted, this is the second payment of the year. The other one was for an equal amount. So 2023, we'll receive in total $400,000. This is the last year of a 10-year agreement. The reserves have been, or these funds go into reserve split between general water and sewer, depending on where the money is needed based on the capital plan. So part of the commitment we made was that we would spend all of the remaining reserves by the end of 2024. So we've got this money spread across a variety of capital projects this year just to get rid of it. And we don't have anything budgeted beyond 2024. They note that a new agreement is in the works, but we have no information on how long it'll be or what the amounts will be. So as assuming, as they've noted here, they will have a new agreement in place in 2024 that those funds will flow into the budget and we'll record them accordingly.
All right. Awesome. Comments?